Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Game Junk Podcast, episode 150, recording on Sunday, May 14th, 2023. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And the biggest day in gaming is here. For almost all gamers, the most anticipated game of 2023, maybe of the decade, released on Friday, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. And we've all played it in varying amounts, and we will be giving our first impressions, I would say with minimal spoilers. I would say we might talk about the abilities you get, which were featured in videos before. The main four abilities. If you want to know nothing about Tears of the Kingdom, I would recommend just putting it on pause until you play it. What do you guys think about that? Does that sound about right?
That sounds fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'd say for most of our discussions. But yeah, definitely no plot stuff.
The Nintendo Direct or whatever, they showed all the stuff we're going to talk about. So I think that's fair game as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
All right.
Now,
so,
did anybody line up outside of a store to pick up this game? Because I saw that people were actually going out to real stores to pick up the physical copy of this game, which seems crazy.
No, with Nintendo vouchers, there's absolutely I was ready to go at midnight, and in true Frank fashion, I was finishing up the 120th shrine in Breath of the Wild at 12:05 and didn't start Tears of the Kingdom until about quarter after 12. And I'm like, do I really want to play Zelda right now? I'm kind of sick of it. I played it, but that feeling went away pretty quickly. So we'll go in like order of who's played it the least to most, so we're not stepping on each other's thoughts. I believe Huck has played it the least, so
most likely 30 minutes.
Let's get your initial impressions there, bud.
Yeah, so I think I told you guys I was pre-reviewing this at an 11 out of 10, given all the hype, given all of the,
you're buying into the hype. I would be the opposite. I'd be like, there's no way it's as good as people say.
We should say that the reviews have been pretty amazing across the board. I mean, it's kind of like Elden Ring all over again. And, just to tie into this, there was also this GQ Top 100 list that just came out saying Breath of the Wild, best game of all time, according to lots of game journalists. So that comes out. Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I haven't read a lot of the actual reviews, but I think a lot of people were saying better than Breath of the Wild, right? Is that not?
I didn't read many reviews either. I didn't want anything spoiled. I saw numbers, saw lots of 10s, lots of perfect reviews. So I was like, I don't think so. I highly doubt this because I think it was generally overrated to begin with. Not that it isn't a great game, and I came around to it. I love the first game, Breath of the Wild, but it is not perfect by any means. There are lots of user experience issues, and spoiler alert, I'm got the same vibe going on with Tears of the Kingdom to varying degrees with the new powers. It's all over the place, but we'll get into it. Huck,
yeah,
you're up first.
So I must say, out of the gate, I was kind of surprised at the amount of cinematics that they kind of put on you right in the first little 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I mean, I was kind of like on the clock here. I'm like, okay, I got 30 minutes before Game Junk. I got to get some gaming in. And then I had to sit there for 10 to 15 minutes watching kind of cinematics. And I was like, this is very un-Zelda-like. Usually you're kind of right into it and there's not much sitting around in story. You might talk to a couple people here and there, but this one was a little more story heavy than I anticipated. And overall, I would say it reminded me almost exactly gameplay wise of Breath of the Wild. I'm super early. I haven't seen anything that really is different than my experience with Breath of the Wild. And I did have I don't know if it's a bug or I just don't know what happened, but I was at the first,
Careful. This could be embarrassment material.
Could be. So you collect your food or whatever, the materials around the world. So you're picking up a mushroom and a hot pepper and apples around the main area. And I get up to the first fire and it's like, here, put some stuff next to the fire. and cook it to make it better. I'm like, okay, fine. I put it next to the fire, it does nothing. I'm like, okay, this is obviously not close enough to the fire. So then I throw it right on the fire, and I don't know how this happened, but I get this like huge puff of air going up, and it blows all the food way up in the sky and scatters it all over the map. Did anyone else have this experience? I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
You use a pot. You don't just put it in a fire. You have to have a pot over the flame.
What are you talking about? A pot?
I do remember. I feel like the first fire you come to doesn't have a pot over it, because I do remember that.
The first pot I did come to, I couldn't cook at, because I was trying to cook at it and I couldn't do it.
Maybe you can, like, there's baked apples and stuff. If you just set it on fire, you can do that.
Yes.
So maybe that's what you're supposed to do. It sounds like you threw a Hylian pine cone in there, which
I did not. I did not have one of those.
You might have. You just might have.
No. I dropped a shroom, something, a shagaroom, whatever it's called, a stag room, and an apple and a spicy pepper. And I thought maybe it was a spicy pepper. It's got some heat to it. And then I did it,
because some of those things you can just throw and they'll like explode or ignite. So
I was doing some experimentation. I put another one on, nothing. So I don't know what happened. And then I piled on a whole bunch of stuff again. And then all of a sudden, kaboom, huge updraft of wind. I still don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like some combination of like the mushroom with the spicy pepper or whatever. I don't know. But let me tell you, trying to find your cooked things.
And he hasn't learned how to cook yet, which was his
No, I haven't. I was looking for a pot, couldn't find one. But I don't know. I was just like amazed that I'm 5 seconds in, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't even know where my food has now gone. It's flown away. I don't know. This seems like a bug.
This is the amazing thing with this game is like the developers didn't anticipate, like you could do so many things differently. They didn't think you would do that.
I guess not. So also I was the one thing that kind of surprised me was after you kind of have the opening cutscenes and you kind of get control, you kind of come to this cliff and you just kind of like jump off, like no big deal. I'm just going to launch off this 500-meter cliff into the water below. No big deal. Link is fearless. And I was kind of surprised. But yeah, that's basically as far as I got. I got to that cooking fire, and then I walked up to the Temple of Time, which is the first like kind of waypoint you're supposed to get to. And then it tells me to go get the first shrine. So that's what I'm currently doing. In terms of the combat, I didn't have too much trouble, but I did have to like heal myself from getting hit. And the weapon degradation stuff, I still do not like. I do not like only being able to pick up like 5 weapons or 6 weapons or whatever, and having to drop stuff when I get a slightly better thing. I don't know why you can't have a setting that's like drop my weakest thing I don't want.
Well, I mean, you're gonna get a big solution to that problem very soon.
Okay, good.
So ability.
Okay, good. So also a slight spoiler, but you have a sword in your possession that seems to be degrading. And did anyone actually like lose it? Can you lose it?
No, you can't.
Okay.
You can't.
Okay.
Are you saying you lost it?
No, I didn't. I refused to keep using it when it said it could possibly go away. So I didn't know if you could or not. I'm wondering if anyone was so bold to keep using it and try to get it to degrade all the way.
I checked to see if you can drop it, and you can't drop it. So
okay. Anyway, so that's about it for me. Not much to report. I found the enemies like they probably give you like 2 or 3 enemy types already after that first little area. There's like a bat, and then what do they call them? The constructs or whatever they're called. And one has a shield. So you kind of have like 3 different attack types. And overall, I thought it was a good opening to the game in terms of easing you into everything. And
we should probably say it's basically the Great Plateau from Breath of the Wild, but it's moved to a sky island type of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's effective.
And I think like you kind of get to the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind of like Sky Island part of that, and the second kind the path is no longer just like a linear. I mean, it is linear, but there is also side paths you can kind of explore around on, which I thought was kind of neat. It's kind of introducing you a tiny bit amount to the open world right off the get-go, where you can explore off the path, but it's not necessary, and you don't really find too much over there, just some cooking materials and stuff like that. So overall, I enjoyed the first half an hour, other than that inventory management system. So I'm looking forward to having it not be an issue.
All right, Sean, I'm assuming I've played more than you, but
yeah, I mean, probably. I have played a fair bit, though. I haven't really been following kind of the main stuff you are supposed to do, which I guess that's just kind of
how what it's all about. That's what you want when you want. That's the freedom that these open world Zelda games allow, Sean. Don't be ashamed. That's what you're supposed to.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is what
you're not supposed to do anything except for what you want to do.
That is what I love about these games. And that is like, I am immediately getting the same feeling I had with Breath of the Wild, where I'm just kind of sucked into this world. And even though it's kind of slow going to start and you don't have an easy way to get around, you just got to walk everywhere for a while. I just like that. Like, I feel like I'm taking my time exploring the world, and you can explore if you want to, even in the tutorial area. So, story-wise, it feels even more sparse than the last game to me. But maybe, like, I agree with you, Huck, that it starts off with some cinematic stuff, maybe a little more than I expected. But then after that, I feel like I don't even know what I'm doing, really. Like,
I'm the opposite. I feel like there's way more story, to the point where it's kind of confusing and overwhelming.
I mean, and maybe I just haven't done enough of the main quest line yet, where stuff is really starting to kick in. But I've just been doing a lot of the shrines, which I love. And, the new powers, I think, are a lot of fun. There is some finicky stuff with some of the physics stuff, but I didn't think there was anything that was overly frustrating so far. I could see where maybe there would be some stuff like that. And I think, some of the concerns that we had when we watched the gameplay demo about, using like Ultra Hand to build things, like, is that going to get annoying to have to keep building things? And I think, yeah, I could see that. There's been a few times where I felt that, but I think there is something you get that does have like a blueprint type idea. I don't forget what it's called, but I haven't got it yet. But I feel like I haven't had a lot of combat so far, and it's just been a lot of exploring and doing shrines, which I am totally cool with. But I could see maybe some people thinking it's a bit slow, maybe feels a bit empty. Like, I could see that. That being said, reviews seem amazing, so I don't think people seem too concerned about that. But yeah, I mean, I just think it does feel a lot like Breath of the Wild, but with these new powers thrown in, which does change the game quite a bit. But it's that weird thing where it's like, is it better than Breath of the Wild? Well, I mean, Breath of the Wild kind of reinvented Zelda. For me, it was like a huge like shift in terms of how open world games work. And this is just like some new powers on top of that. So I don't really see that as like a huge evolution, but that being said, I still am really enjoying it. So, yeah.
Well, my first impressions are the look of all the new things, the new characters, the constructs, Zonai. There's a villain or a potential villain you see very early in that opening cinematic. The art direction of all that stuff blew me away. I love everything about it. I love the look of the new shrines and like the sand. What would you call that? Like a sand garden kind of thing, with like waves of sand. It's like I don't know. There's like Japanese gardens or something that look like, I don't know what they're called. Someone tell me in the comments what that's called. But there's like an aesthetic to all those shrines that I love. When you get to the end of a shrine and you see like these two characters in this kind of stone structure, I love all that. And the smoke and fog surrounding it, the vibe of the shrines is phenomenal. I also love the look of the Sky Islands, and the color palette in general, I think, is really good, including changes to Link. And I love the new design of Zelda. I think she looks amazing, and Purah as well. I think all the character designs are improved. In terms of gameplay, we got to talk about the 4 main abilities. So if you don't want to know about any of these, just a reminder, I'm going to talk about all of them with pretty specific complaints and praise. So number 1, Ultra Hand. This is the new ability that lets you fuse things together to make devices, ways of traversing the world, whatever you can imagine, basically, using these kind of ancient parts. And it's a real love-hate relationship to me, but ultimately disappointing. So the love, let's talk about the love. When it's specifically curated experiences, and when we say that, we mean shrines, and small side quests where you help people fix things using that ability in creative ways, that's where this power shines. When there's a little creative constraint and guidance from the designers to like, hey, use this in a creative way to solve this puzzle. And it doesn't tell you exactly how to do it, but what you need is there to figure it out. That works tremendously well. My only criticism with that would be there are definitely shrines where I got soft locked, where you could make things float, and then I ran out of materials and I basically had to restart the shrine. That's a bit of a design fail.
If I could just jump in for a sec, because one of my first experiences with Ultra Hand was, you have to build this boat, this raft to get across the water, and there's a sail that they give you. And I started trying to build it, dropped the sail in the water, and I couldn't get it back out. And I was like, okay, I'm fucked. Like, what do I do? But I kept walking, and there was a bunch of sails just sitting on the shore eventually. So obviously,
the design solutions just dump a pile of stuff around. So
yeah.
But even the mechanism for using the batteries for the fans and stuff like that, where you hit it, I'm not crazy about that, because you have to like hit it and then jump on. You do this glider early on where it's kind of cool, but I wish I just had my paraglider from the first game. It's way more fun. So while I can appreciate it in the right context, it works well. In other times, it's not that great. And to me, it's the rotating. You get better at it and learning how to rotate. But there are so many times when it's just quicker for me to drop something and pick it up again rather than rotate it to get the way I want, which to me is a user experience fail. I'm sorry that if you haven't solved rotating and how to attach things accurately, that you failed coming up with this mechanic. And that includes wiggling things to detach them. Because there are times when you use spikes and you have to get it in a specific spot and you're aligning everything, and then you got to take something off and you wiggle it and you move your whole thing along with it. And then you have to go back and redo a bunch of work again. The wiggle to remove items from Ultra Hand is basically a decade later the equivalent of the blow mechanic in Donkey Kong Country Return. Just a disaster. It is not, just give me a button to detach something. The wiggle absolutely sucks. I don't know how that made it into a game when you need to be like somewhat accurate with what you're building and where you're placing stuff for these puzzles. So I will not bend on that at all. No one's going to convince me that wiggle is a good idea ever.
I don't disagree with you. I just haven't had the situation yet where it's totally messed me up. Like I've had cases where I've tried to move something and a piece felt like ripped off because it thought I was trying to wiggle. But the thing with the building too is like, and I'm sure you're the same way, Frank, but like you start out and you're trying to get everything perfect. And I think ultimately, like, you don't have to, like, so you think you do, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be facing exact right angles and everything. So
kind of does, because if you build a raft and it's not like an odd number of logs and you go to attach a fan and it's not in the center, your boat's going to turn to the left or the right. So it does have to be exact, Sean. I disagree again.
I think it depends what it is. There's a lot of times where I've built something and in my head, I've been like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it doesn't turn out the way I thought, and maybe it's going off on some weird angle or whatever, but eventually it still works out. You still get where you're trying to go, or you like adjust as you go. Like it I don't know. I've never had that experience yet where I was just like so frustrated with it, but I could see it happening.
It works. It shines in the shrines when it's a very specific thing, puzzle to solve using physics. It's a lot of fun and very rewarding. So I can take the good with the bad. If I was going to reduce this criticism down to why I think it's ultimately not successful for the most part, in the Sky Islands, you're using all these things to get from island to island, and I'm basically just pining for my old abilities from the first game. But I get it. I'm learning how to use this. I can live with this. And then you've used it a bunch. Hopefully by the end of that introduction, you have a semi-firm grasp of what Ultra Hand can do. And you get out into the open world in Hyrule and you see this stack of materials with wheels and wood. And it's like, here you go, build whatever you want. And I would bet 80% of people run past that. And if that's the result, I mean, it's fine. You don't have to play that way if you don't want to. But if you've come up with this huge ability to build things and your playtest, if I was designing this game and we spent as much time as this game did on this ability and you sat people down and said, hey, here's a whole box full of stuff to play with, and everyone walks by it, which I'm guessing most people do, that's a failure. I'm sorry. That does not.
Well, I was playing with.
You ran by it as well?
No, I was playing with Kieran and he was like, oh, yes. And he just stopped for like half an hour and built stuff. But, that was him, not me. I would have probably run past it.
Yeah, I think most people will run past it. But whatever, you can skip it if you want it, but it does work well in the shrines. So it's good. I don't think it's a bad thing. And it basically condenses magnesis and mostly magnesis and stasis to some degree. Ascend is cool, but this lets you go up through ceilings. But I personally find it very finicky. I'm under things that I know I should be able to ascend towards, and I'll like move a little bit and it'll turn green for a millisecond, then red. And it's tough to aim and to know what you can ascend through. Not to mention when you do, it takes forever. I understand if I'm going through a whole mountain and it needs to load something, but when I'm just going up in a room that's already loaded, I do not want to wait for this to happen. And then I do not want to press a button when I get to the top to emerge from it either. So I've heard people say on the Discord that, well, you can get into weird situations and you want to cancel it, but I haven't hit one of those yet. In playing 15 hours, I haven't had a scenario like, oh, I don't want to do this. I've actually
always
out of it by accident.
I just assumed it was there for like if you pop up and there's some enemy there or something and you're like, oh shit, like you can go back. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. It definitely doesn't improve up. Like it's a shittier version of Rivaldi's Gale, I think it's called, or Rivali's Gale, which I love. And next is Fuse. Fuse is amazing. Fuse is where you can strengthen weapons by adding parts and other weapons to them. And the part where it really excels, as far as I'm concerned, is for arrows. So being able to fuse different items on arrows to blind enemies, bombs. I do miss having bombs that I can throw on my own. I find there are not enough bomb flowers, and they kind of replace the need to destroy certain rock surfaces where you can use rock fused weapons, which is not that much fun. I'd rather just throw a bomb.
Yeah, I was just coming up against that just today. And I was wondering, like, yeah, bomb flowers are really hard to find. And I keep coming up to caves where I need to bomb the entrance. And I didn't realize that you could just smash them open with stuff. So
which I don't think you could do in Breath of the Wild, but I could be wrong. I didn't try it because I always had a bomb around. And through decades of playing Zelda, when I see those cracked rocks, I throw bombs at them.
Yeah.
Should probably teach the player or make it a little more fun to break those. But Fuse is by far the best ability to me. It's not even close. And Rewind, or is that what it's called?
Recall, I think.
Oh, yeah. Kind of disappointing. I've only used it like 3 times, and it's been really obvious situations to use it. I haven't done anything creative with Recall yet. One of those stones fell down from the sky, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to take this up and I'm going to discover something. I take it up and I'm floating in the middle. Like there's nothing there. I'm just floating in the middle of a sky. I'm like, what? Why did I ride this thing up here for however long it took me to do this? What a lame thing.
Yeah. And why would they even spawn it there?
Yeah, I know. Like spawn it in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it like things just fall from the sky. Like that's just like a thing that's happening as far as I can tell. And it's kind of like a cool vibe thing. But yeah, because of that gameplay demo, you assume that every single one of them leads somewhere. And I don't think they all do.
The other thing, new idea that I love and it works for me is the skydiving. And when I do Sky Islands, there's Korok seeds where you have to dive down after them really quickly to catch them. And there's been some skydiving challenge things that I found. That stuff is a lot of fun and it controls really well. So that's definitely a win for me.
Do you ever get to control like in the air, or is it just dive or not dive?
Yeah, you get a version of the.
Oh, okay.
Later on. So that I would complain about that more, but you get it pretty quickly, I would say. But overall, the towers, which this is included in the skydiving stuff. The new version of towers kind of propel you in the air, and they're a lot of fun. And you can find things really easily, get to places really quickly, use your now the Sheikah Slate is called the Purapad. You can use the Purapad while you're skydiving, and that is very useful as well. So that's great. But I mean, in terms of Zelda stuff, the greatest thing about it, I've done one of the equivalents of a divine beast so far in this game, and I've gotten 1 power and probably maybe 16 shrines or something like that. And the puzzles are great. Like the temple or dungeon was amazing. The boss was really good. The shrines are for the most part excellent. So it's pretty even with Breath of the Wild for me. It's also tough to tell because when you go from Breath of the Wild having fully powered up your stamina and hearts, and you're getting amazing weapons, and then you go directly into this game where you have nothing again, it's a little frustrating. I'm dying a lot, and I would almost wish in some ways I didn't play it because it would have been better forgetting all these things that I made life so much easier. And the replacements I got the first replacement for the old powers from the Divine Beasts. Not crazy about what they did with those this time. Although it looks like you level them up in a different way. I don't know for sure, but I feel kind of vindicated. Because I believe on this show, if not, I've told everyone else I know, that in Breath of the Wild, they should have made you go to the Rito Divine Beast first, because it makes exploration easier and makes you climb less, which is the least fun part of the game. And they actually do that in this one. That was vindication on my part. They're like, yeah, let's point them towards the Rito one this time. But then you get the power, and it's kind of a nerfed version of the old one. I'm like, can I just get my old thing back, please? But I do think they point you in a better direction this time to start the game.
Yeah, I haven't done any dungeons or anything yet, so I'm curious to see how that plays out. But maybe we should touch on some of the quality of life improvements. Like there are some things that I've seen, and then there's things that I've read about but haven't seen yet. But like one of the first ones, so there are portable pots now, Huck, for your cooking issues. So you can cook anywhere. But the thing,
amazing.
I'm pretty sure they're like single use, if I'm not mistaken, which is a little annoying. I thought you'd just be able to carry one around and use it whenever. What else is there? I was reading something about fast travel. Maybe you can confirm this, Frank. Because, in Breath of the Wild, you could fast travel between shrines and towers, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And I assumed it was the same in this one, but I read somewhere that you can actually put down a marker and fast travel to specific points on the map. Is that like a thing, or?
I'm not sure. In the DLC for Breath of the Wild, you could get a marker to place. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. There's an equivalent of that you get in this game at some point, but I have not gotten it yet, or I'm not aware of it if it exists.
Okay. And I guess just one other little thing, but Huck, you were talking about the weapons, like you can only carry so many, and it's like you pick up a better weapon, you want to drop the other one automatically. They do have, like, if you open a chest and it's something better, if you open a chest and your inventory is full, it'll automatically take you to your inventory where you can just drop something right away. Like, it doesn't automatically do it for you, but it at least takes you to that menu. The only thing that's annoying is if you pick it up off the ground as opposed to from a chest, it doesn't do that, as far as I can tell. But I don't know. There's a few other little things like that. I can't think of anything else offhand, but
I think you can see ingredients for recipes a little more conveniently, and like there's a log of all those. There's other ones that are coming that I haven't gotten yet that I've heard of, but to be honest, there weren't as many as I was expecting. I thought there was going to be, like, for cooking, faster ways to cook. It's kind of the same thing, and there's less quality of life than I was expecting in the game. And there's something that big to me that's changed. I don't know if it's just me that's noticing this. Part of it's good, part of it's bad. So the shrines, there was always optional treasure chests in those, right? And at least the shrines I've done so far are very streamlined, in the sense that there's every one I've done, there's one chest. In the previous game, there might be one, there might be five. Like, it just depended on how big the shrine is. And I find, maybe it's because I'm in more central Hyrule, but the shrines I'm doing are much more streamlined. They're shorter, I find, in terms of how much stuff you do in one, and how many ideas you use in one shrine seem to be a little more condensed. And there's only been one treasure chest. And I love getting the treasure chests. It's usually something clever, or thinking slightly outside the box, or doing something a little more challenging that's in the same, creative ballpark as the main puzzle for the shrine. But I am getting so disappointed in how it rewards me for finding these treasure chests. It's like a weapon I already have 3 of, or like shit I already have. At the very least, give me rupees. Give me something I can actually use, like, to make, especially in a game where you can just farm stuff very easily if that's what you want to do and sell it. Like, give me a gold rupee. At least it's something I can use, or give me the option to take the weapon or a rupee. It's so annoying to do something that is sometimes really challenging for, like, the lamest reward possible. And I feel in general, the treasure chests that I open these days, they stink. I'm like, that was a waste of my time. I spent more resources to get the chest than what I got. Like, yeah, that's bad. That's bad level design. I'm sorry.
I did have that thought. I mean, I don't know if it's randomized or not. No. Maybe it is, but okay. That reminded me, actually, I was going to ask you, excuse me, still sick after I caught whatever Reed gave you guys, but so the rupees, you mentioned rupees. I've come to shops and wanted to buy stuff. I don't have any rupees yet. I don't see anywhere to sell stuff for rupees. How the hell do I get rupees?
Every shop you can sell it. It's literally every shop. It's like, sell something is the first option.
I did not see that option. I'll have to take another look. I mean, the main one I'm talking about is the one that's at the lookout or whatever.
You talk to the person, you can always sell.
Okay. Yikes. Take another look.
This guy with it. Breath of the Wild was your favorite game of all time, right? Just
and, exactly number two. But I don't know. I didn't see it. Maybe it's something that unlocks. Maybe I hadn't done part of that main quest line yet, but I was confused.
Another small thing that I love: abundance of arrows, because you have to use arrows a lot. And in the last game, I found I was always buying arrows because I was missing and running out of them. There's a conscious design effort to have plentiful arrows to encourage you to fuse things to them, which is great. Although I do find it a little cumbersome to cycle through every possible thing you can attach to arrows to find the one you're looking for. You can sort by frequently used, but if it's the first time you're going to use it, it's kind of obnoxious. And I wish I could build, like, just a favorites list of stuff to attach to those.
Yeah, that would be good. I should say the amiibos do the same thing they did for the last game, or at least the ones I have, which is they just dump a bunch of random food or weapons or accessories chests. So it's kind of a
gold mine behind me. What am I doing?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're ever feeling like you're sick of having to hunt down certain things, try them out. You might find it makes things a little easier.
Some new enemies that are very cool. While I like the Sky Islands, it can be very frustrating to miss, like when you're gliding and miss a ledge and fall and basically just have to reload the game, or fall so far that you die and reset. That's
sounds like great design.
Well, there's a couple things I did before I got the new glider or whatever, and there was one quest early on where you're helping Impa, I think, with the balloon, and you get up in the balloon, and she's kind of like, "All right, you can dive off now. Go ahead." And I didn't have a glider. I was like, and so I died. Like I couldn't do that quest yet. That was kind of weird.
Great design.
Yeah.
But I did that too, and it says, hey, if you search where this land art is, you should be able to find something important. And I looked all around. I'm like, I don't know. Like I found it. It said it might be there. It might be around it. And I was looking everywhere. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking for.
I can give you a hint, Frank. It's
you found it?
Something to do with tears. Where would you look for a tear?
Is it the rock by the eye? Because I picked that up.
Well, there's like a puddle or something by the eye, I believe.
Well, that's embarrassing. Okay. Sean found it and I didn't. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
question my whole life. This is embarrassing. But just, even hold my hand. This is a brand new idea. These sky art puzzles, like just make sure I find it. So I because I was over searching because there's a cave underneath that. And it's like, that's on me though. I'm truly embarrassed. But I know I like pointing out the flaws in the game because I'm hearing nothing but praise. But don't get me wrong, it's growing on me tremendously. I'm getting much better at rotating things, even though it's not perfect. And let's be honest, not necessarily fun to mess around with rotating objects. I don't particularly like doing it in 3D engines with a mouse, let alone with a controller in a game. So it's a little rough, but when it works, it really works. So music's awesome. World's great. Anything new is pretty strong. I wish they would have given me all my old stuff. That's my only thing. Like, I don't see why it would have hurt to give me some of that stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that is the problem with doing sort of a direct sequel where it feels very similar. It's got a lot of the same underlying mechanics, and you're just like, but why can't I have that thing I had in the last game? So
I think they do an okay job story-wise of resetting things. I was like, how are they going to bring me back down to nothing? And I kind of like what they did. But yeah, I'm digging it. It does the good thing about resetting it, and what a lot of games seem to be doing lately. God of War. What was the other game we talked? Oh, Fallen Order, maybe Fallen Order. But like just continuing where the last one left off to some degree and reusing the world, but changing it slightly to kind of probably cut development cycles, but still keep the game fresh. I'm all for that trend. It really works well, especially for big games where you don't have to relearn where everything is.
Yeah. Any thoughts on like performance stuff? Like I've seen like a little bit of slowdown using the powers sometimes, but that's about it.
I haven't had any issues. The only thing is like flags when you're in the mountains. They like cut the frame rate down on those, or how quick, like the cloth, how often it updates. I'm not sure if it's an animation or cloth, to be honest, but every once in a while I see where they're getting performance out of things, but I see that in lots of games. That's Sekiro did that, where things would ragdoll. From Software games do it a lot. So that's not a deal breaker for me. Nothing that's like bothered me at all. The biggest annoyance I've had is soft locking shrines because of like the nature of the physics.
Yeah, that's
That only happened once, maybe twice for me though. So, but one time I got out of it by doing something ridiculous. Like I had to use a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to use to reset a situation, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like it's kind of interesting. Like I'm trying to think of specific stuff that's happened, but it's one of those games where I know you're going to be talking to people about playing it, and everybody's going to have slightly different stories of how they did something and weird situations that have come up because something you tried to build didn't quite work. Like I don't know. I kind of like that about it. Like obviously, yes, there can be some frustrating things from it, but I don't know. That's kind of a cool thing that
but even
feels like your experience.
You see enemies with horse and carriage where you could build something to like harness onto a horse. I don't understand why that's a benefit to me. Like, why would I want to stand in something rather than ride the horse? Like, why is it worth the effort to do that? It is the juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to Ultra Hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just some of the early stuff they have where you have those things on hooks going down the
cool
blinds. Those are pretty fun.
It was cool the first time I did it. Second time I did it, I was like, it's all right. There's one shrine that does it, an even better version of that, where you actually have to think creatively on how to build things. So don't get it twisted here, Sean. In the right context, Ultra Hand rules. In the wrong context, it fails. It is a turd. So, but okay. You can ignore, the good news is you can pretty much ignore the ones where it's not great. And the ones where it's awesome are somewhat mandatory for shrines, and they're very good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great game so far. If I'm being 100% honest, I would rather be finishing Jedi Survivor. I feel like I was having more fun with that game. It's more in line with like the type of games I like, but I kind of force-fed Tears of the Kingdom all day when I had free time yesterday for tonight to record the show, and it's growing on me every hour I keep playing. So
yeah, I mean, it's been a few weeks of like big releases coming out, and whatever we were playing before, it's like, okay, let's try the new thing. But I don't think anything big's coming out for the next few weeks now, but like this has its hooks in me. So I'm going to be playing this for a while, I think.
Nice. Any other thoughts? That's all my notes. No,
I think that's about it for me right now.
I'm sure we'll have more updates in the near future. Perhaps a Game Junk reviews. Who knows?
Yeah. Do we know what the playtime on this is?
I think I saw main story 40 hours, maybe 50.
Really?
Do not quote me on that.
Yeah, okay. That'd be hard to. I'm sure that's like a straight line shot too, probably, which is probably unlikely for any one of us to actually do it that way.
On how long to beat 43 and a half hours for main story is what I'm saying, which kind of makes sense. I would say from where you learn about one of the 4 things, and it's usually like 3 parts to get to the area, do a mini, maybe 4 parts, get to some spot within that region, not an interesting path to get to the dungeon, and then the dungeon itself. That's probably like 8 hours. So that times 4 and some connective stuff in between. Sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those games where you start off down one path thinking I'm just going to like do all the main stuff, but then you're like, oh, but I actually need this, or I need to do some more shrines so I can have more hearts or stamina. And it just, everything kind of feeds into everything else. So, I mean, that's not a bad thing, but
in general, I prefer the shrines in this one to the first. Like I'm having more fun and way less frustration in the shrines. Like they are very cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely my favorite stuff in these games. So,
but the dungeon was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. I loved it.
Cool.
Okay. Tears of the Kingdom. let us know. I'm sure from what I've seen in the Discord, everyone is loving this game. No one is complaining about it the way I am, which is fine. Nintendo gets yet another free pass. I'm used to it. I can deal with it. I've been dealing with it my whole life. But it's a very good game. We'll see if it grows on me the same way Breath of the Wild did, and I became obsessed with it. Okay. Anything else anyone played? It's a no from
Nothing
Hawk.
for me. No, nothing for
me. I've got a few like little things. I guess, I'll just mention one game that I put a couple hours into this week, which was called Taiji or Taiji. I don't know how you pronounce it, but
Graham, did you recommended this to you as well, or?
No, I don't know how I originally heard about it, but there was like a sale on Steam on puzzle games recently, and that's where I picked it up. But it's Taiji is how you spell it, and it's basically The Witness but in 2D, and very similar to The Witness. But I did
message me telling me how good it is. Yeah, I missed the sale, so I'm gonna buy it next time it goes on sale.
Yeah, like I'm enjoying it. It's just I do find I think The Witness is a little better at kind of introducing the main mechanic of a section to you and then building on it. Like this one, the first few sections I was doing, I would get the first couple puzzles, and then as soon as they add the twist to it, I was like, I don't know, I got no idea. So I'd have to look up a bunch of stuff. Sorry.
In Zelda so far, I have not looked up anything. I was almost stuck for a second, but
the only thing I looked up is how to get rupees.
Oh, Sean, no. Oh no, I did look up one thing. I lied. Because I was like, am I doing this? There's a new enemy type, and like you have to use Ascend on it, I think. And I'm like, because it's really finicky. I'm like, this can't be right. This is impossible to time it. And no, that's what you got to do. And it kind of stinks. So I did look it up because I thought of this. I couldn't be right, but that's what it is.
Are you talking about like those big walking guys with the platforms on top, or?
Yeah. The new version of the Talos.
Yeah. But I guess you could also jump off of a higher point, right?
Yeah, but they eventually, when you hit the rock, it throws you off at some point. And you have to get back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I got the first power from the equivalent of the Divine Beast, I was like, I thought it was going to be a game changer, and because every time you would get one of those, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. But it was a little underwhelming. So we'll see how those progress. Okay, I played just briefly after I bought it on the show last week. I fired up Tape to Tape after we recorded the new hockey roguelike. It basically plays like NHL 94, and it's a roguelike version of that where you pick your team and adjust their abilities as you go through a bunch of games or a tournament. And it was pretty good. I was enjoying it. I wouldn't say I was like head over heels for it or anything, but then I got to the last boss of my first run, and you end up playing the referees. I think they're called the Zebras. And I won, and then because it's the refs and they cheat, they just said no goal. And then they took my goal away, and then they scored and I lost, and it negated my whole run. And I'm like, well, that fucking sucks. Like, I get the joke. It's kind of funny, but I'm like, I just threw an hour away for nothing, for your little joke. And I didn't think it was too funny, and I don't think I'm going to play it. Very clever. It's a very clever way to fucking piss off your players.
Successful.
Yeah. See ya. Bye, Tape to Tape.
Yeah, that's probably some Leaf fans would not be too happy with that right now either. But I was interested in this game, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, there was a hockey game that was on that Rogue Jam thing like a year or two ago, which was kind of, I don't think we ever talked about it, but IGN kind of had this.
Right. Yeah.
It was a little bit like Dragon's Den or something for video games. And one of the games I was in there that was being showcased. Yeah, Hockey Heroes. That's right. So I don't know, if that was a roguelike or not. But and I don't even know if that game's come out yet. But yeah, two different.
Funny
games.
because I'm looking at it and actually, I could see like a Mutant League hockey version of this where different mutants are what you add to your team, and
yeah,
looks like Hockey Heroes might have a hint of that, but can't really tell.
I have one thing I did remember I played, and it was No Nozzle. I put in some more time into that game. Beat a couple more of these abstract puzzles, but that are super hard, but it's just so relaxing to play this game. I love it. And so I'm just firing it up every once in a while. Trying to beat a few puzzles.
Crushing these out while you
I don't.
Or what?
No, I don't. I don't have a Steam Deck yet. I can't do it. I can't pull the triggers. Too much money for me.
Well, what about the Rogue Ally or whatever it's
Thinking
called?
about
the
it.
Rogue Ally. Did we talk about that? We haven't really talked about it, but
I think we mentioned it, or well, maybe we talked about it.
Because of the Phil Spencer interview, he said he was excited.
Right.
But did they? I think they were supposed to announce more info this week, but I didn't hear anything about it. Did they announce a price or anything? I think there was like a rumor of the price.
They got like 8s, I think, on IGN and a few other places.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did read something about it. Like there was an article, I think, that was comparing it to Steam Deck, and it basically sounded like it's more powerful than Steam Deck, and it's lighter than Steam Deck, but it kind of comes down to like
the same price, 900 Canadian.
I think it's a little more, at least.
I'm looking at it on Best Buy right now. It's listed pre-order for 900 Canadian.
Well, but I think the low end Steam Deck's cheaper than that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So you can theoretically get a Steam Deck for cheaper, but I don't know if the specs match exactly. But the one big difference is this runs Windows, so it's like that could be better depending on what you want it for. But I'd be curious to check it out.
Yeah. All right, any big releases this week? I doubt it. With Tears of the Kingdom releasing, but
what's today? The 14th. Yeah, I mean, there's that Humanity games coming out on PS Plus next week, which is also on PSVR 2. Another Fisherman's Tale came out this week as well, which I want to check out at some point. But Lord of the Rings Gollum, I guess, would be the next big release, but I think that's the 25th.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening or watching on youtube.com/GameJunk. There are Discord links in the YouTube video. Give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever. And we'll probably be back with more Tears of the Kingdom thoughts. See if Sean has figured out how to sell things yet. And we'll see if Huck has learned how to cook yet. It'll be a big week.
Huge.
All right. Equilibrium Sis and My Angry Commute for Huck on Twitter and Film Junk for Sean. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.